money talks. Bullshit runs the marathon. So, see ya, and I wouldn't want to be.
It's time for the New York Giants to step it up. This is Dennis New York Giants Straight Talk, powered by Online Big Blue LLC. It's that game. Is it the game that is going to be the get right, or is it a trap? Want to talk about the Malik Neighbors injury a little bit. Want to talk about just everything Giants and Washington Commandos. How we think this game is going to roll. What our predictions are. Well, we're not going to give our predictions because we give that on the Sunday live stream, but we're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about the offense. We're going to talk about the defense. We're going to talk about what both teams need to do to be successful and to win. Malik Neighbors was limited in practice yesterday. I mean, he has a little bit of knee soreness. They're reporting a little bit of knee issue, a little bit of knee soreness, and they're not saying that it's anything. They're not saying it's anything major. It cropped up late yesterday, so we're gonna have to kind of wait and see where we're at with that. We're gonna have to wait and see to get a little bit more information. I'm not too overly concerned about it as we speak, but it is something that we are going to need to keep an eye on through the rest of the weekend and kind of see what's going on with that. Because, like I said, I don't know. Your injury reports yesterday were people that did not participate was Nick McLeod. Let's see who else. Gunnar didn't participate. We also had Darius, the linebacker, didn't participate. Limited participation, of course, was going to be Malik Neighbors with the knee, and Darius Slayton and Micah McFadden had a full participation in practice yesterday as well. So, like I said, I'm not going to be overly concerned just yet. Let's wait till we get a little bit more towards game time and then kind of figure it out there. Right now, the Giants are sitting at 0-1. It was as bad as you could possibly get outside of losing 40 points in the rain to Dallas last year, but it was pretty bad. And you know what? We have to turn the page on the game because that game has to be over. We got to look towards this Washington game because I've said this before. After this game right here, we could potentially lose 7 in a row. It's amazing that going into week 2, this literally has to be a get right game for the Giants. But I'm thinking to myself, is it a get right game or is it?
It's a trap.
Is it a trap? Are we walking into a trap game week 2 of the NFL season? The Washington Commanders did give up 4 touchdowns via the pass and with about 280 yards, I believe it was. So, I mean, it was one of those games. Jaden Daniels also went 17 for 24 for 184. No interceptions. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground with 16 carries for 88 yards. The Commanders defense, you know, it's interesting. It's going to be an interesting team to watch because I don't know if the continuity of their defense is there just yet. They have a lot of new guys on defense, so I'm not sure that, it takes time, even with training camp. It takes time when you bring in a whole bunch of new players. It takes time to literally gel at times, and maybe that's what's going on with the Giants. But honestly, we outside of Neighbors and some offensive linemen, we really didn't bring in we didn't really bring in a lot of new guys. I think the secondary of the Commanders is something that the Giants can exploit. We don't have Mike Evans and we don't have Baker Mayfield, but we do have, we do have some skilled position players. And that's mainly Neighbors and Darius. Darius has got to giddy up. He can get out of there if he gets out of concussion protocol. But I'm not sitting there looking at this defensive backfield, and I'm not overly fearful of what's going on with this team. I think their linebackers are actually. I mean, I love Bobby Wagner even at his advanced age. They have guys on defense. Do they have them in that defensive secondary? I'm not impressed with the defensive secondary in Washington. I think the Giants, if anything, should use that and try to exploit that. I think their run defense is solid enough and will be solid enough. And I think with the running backs that we have, they're going to force the Giants into throwing. Now, and 2 things I'm thinking of, if you force the Giants into throwing, that could be a good thing or a bad thing against the secondary because of the fact that if your skilled guys can't get open, if your skilled guys can't find the gaps in the zone and your quarterback can't get them the ball, it doesn't matter. It really won't matter very much at all. And we have to exploit their weaknesses. Washington, that is. And it's funny that we are going to go one of our strengths. I mean, excuse me, the strengths that the Giants should have this game is going up against the Washington secondary. But the problem is this, one of our major deficiencies is at quarterback. So it's really kind of weird, to be honest, because of the fact that if you take a look at this and you see, you're going to say, hey, okay, we can go up against this secondary with our skill guys, but can our quarterback even get them the ball or find them? Washington right now is a 2.5 point favorite over the Giants. Like I said, I just don't have a lot of inspiration or confidence in the Commanders' defense. I really don't. But at the end of the day, I do think this is a winnable game for their defense. And I think the X factor in this entirety of this game is going to be Daniel Jones. Dable has got to show more, which is weird because Dable's got to show more faith in Jones. The problem is the more faith you show in Jones, the more you're let down. Daniel is 5-0 against, I believe, Washington. He usually plays well enough against the Commanders to win. But I don't know. I don't have this glowing amount of confidence right now that our offense can exploit the deficiencies and the weaknesses in the secondary of the Washington team, of the Washington Commanders. I really just don't think we have that. And I don't think our running game is going to be good enough to really help set up the pass because I don't have any faith in Devin Singletary. I think he's a good back. I think he's a quality back, but I think he is a guy that is just what he is. He's a 27-year-old running back whose best seasons came with the Bills. Last year with Houston, he ran for 898 yards, 4.2 yards a carry. But at the end of the day, when everyone got hurt in Houston, they didn't rely on the running game. They relied on the rookie quarterback. He only had 38 yards last week. So, I mean, he's not this bell cow back that everyone's escaped. When Saquon Barkley touches the ball, you have a fear factor that he is going to take it 80 yards. The problem is this: when Singletary touches the ball, I'm thinking it's 4 yards in a cloud of dust. Same thing with the mighty Eric Gray. I refer to it as 2 yard Eric, 2 yards in a cloud of dust, Eric, right? But it's this, the defense of Washington is bothering me. To me, they're a work in progress. They really are. Right now, I believe they're ranked 32nd against the pass and 27th against, 32nd against the pass and 27th. Yeah, I think it was 32nd against the pass. I think right now they're last in the league in the pass. But which is fine because it's only been one game. But I just don't have this fear factor from that defense. But the problem is I don't have any confidence in our offense. I don't have any confidence in our tight end position. I don't have any confidence in our running game. I don't have any confidence outside of Neighbors. To me, like I've said it before, Wan'Dale Robinson should be Darren Sproles. Darius Slayton is a third or fourth wide receiver on a good team. Hyatt can't get on the field. He only had 4 plays. But on paper, the Giants should be able to exploit the weaknesses in this defense. On paper. Now, the Giants' defense against Washington, this is where I get a little concerned. You have 2 quality running backs in Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr. You got 2 quality running backs. You also have 2 running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield. I believe they combined, they had something like 11 catches for 100 yards last week. I forget the exact numbers. So you have 2 guys that can also catch the ball out of the backfield. You have 2 guys that can run off tackle. You saw what happened last week with Aaron Jones. I think that these 2 backs in Eckler and I think in Brian Robinson Jr., they're better than Aaron Jones. But the question is going to be, what is going to be the total philosophy with Washington against this Giant team? If I'm Washington, I've talked about this before. If I'm Washington, I keep it very simple. I follow the game plan of the Minnesota Vikings. I run at Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. I run off tackle. I've said this before. This is what I do. I run off tackle. I run at multitudes of time. I use the wheels of Jaden Daniels, and I use what I always like to refer to as a floating pocket. So in other words, I move the pocket to the left and I move the pocket to the right. I give him extra time against Burns and Thibodeau. And honestly, if Burns and Thibodeau get over aggressive, if I'm Dan Quinn, I tell Jaden Daniels, if Burns and Thibodeau are becoming over aggressive when we're floating the pocket, just take off. Because more than likely, there's not going to be much between Burns and Thibodeau in the second level in the secondary. Not in the second level in the linebacking core, but that second level. Because I think our safeties have an issue at times, kind of diagnosing plays. And if you watch Shane Bowen's defense, he kind of likes to keep it. And it's one of the trend I've noticed basically last week. Teams are keeping their two safeties deep. They're keeping the plays in front of them. The only problem is last week we tried to keep in plays in front of us, and we had the Vikings still get behind the secondary. But if I am the Commanders, I tell Jaden, listen, we're gonna float you in the pocket. We're gonna move it from side to side, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn around, and then we are going to, take on the over aggressiveness of the Giants defense in reference to the ends, and we're gonna allow you just to take off. And then once you keep setting the Giants up with the run, it's gonna be like last week. The safeties are gonna creep. And when you see the safeties coming in and not backpedaling as a quarterback, and hopefully as a young quarterback, he doesn't recognize this. You see the safeties coming in, you take your shot deep. And Jaden has got more than enough arm strength to go deep. And you got the likes of Terry McLaurin out there. And like I said, you have the two backs out of the backfield. There is a potential that it's funny. There's a potential this could be a shootout if the Giants offense can score anything. Because I think that Washington is smart enough to understand they were smart enough to understand this in Tampa. They have a rookie quarterback. You are going to slowly ask him to do things, and each week you're going to ask him to do more. And last week, what you did is you let him throw, but you also understood that he has this running ability. He has this ability to keep defenses honest. So the problem with the Giants is with this type of quarterback, if you come up and you're only rushing 4 guys, and he gets through that initial rush, Jaden Daniels, that is, he's probably got a wide open middle of the field. And with his speed, he can get around any one of our Giant defenders on the outside or in the middle of the field. So if I'm thinking about this, like I said, if I'm Washington, I set the Giants, I do exactly what Minnesota did. I set the Giants up with the run. I go off tackle all the time, all day long. You run at Burns, you run at Thibodeau. And then I turn around, and when the safeties creep, I go deep. And then at the same time, I use a floating pocket for Jaden Daniels. I move him to the left. I move him to the right. I give him some additional time against the pass rush. And if the rush becomes over aggressive, I let him know, listen, just take off. And if they run a 4-man rush like Shane likes to do, they're just going to open up the middle of the field. You get a 4-man rush and you got Dexter, you got Nacho, you got Burns and Thibodeau becoming over aggressive and coming in. You do what Jason Garrett did multitudes of times with Daniel Jones. He took advantage of the over aggressiveness of the defense. The problem is this: Daniel Jones and Jaden Daniels are two different quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels got wheels. He's more than got wheels. He's more than got speed to burn. He's more than got acceleration. Daniel Jones, we've said it before, he's like that 76 Buick I used to have in high school. Ugly car. It was fast, but you had to get it fucking rolling downhill first. So if I'm Washington, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to exploit with the Giants. Now, if I'm the Giants defense, I'm going to have to be more disciplined than I was last week. I'm going to have my edge players understand they need to maintain their assignments. They need to have the understanding that they need to control the outside. They need to control the edge. They cannot become over aggressive. They cannot become frustrated. They have to understand that they need to maintain. I'm going to say it over and over again. They need to maintain their assignments, and they need to hold the edge, because outside of Bobby Okereke, there's really nothing behind them in the linebacking core or in the safety core. But you need to make sure you play. It's that old sports cliche. You need to play within yourself.
That's what she said.
And you just have to keep Jaden Daniels in the pocket. Don't let him get to the outside. Don't let him move. Don't let him run. Make sure you don't need to use a spy in the middle of the field, but make sure that you don't you try to collapse the pocket and push the play to the inside if you're the edges. and push him into Dexter Lawrence. Because outside of Okereke, like I said, we are going to have issues with our linebackers. Because I think Robinson, I think Eckler, and I think Ertz could potentially have big days in the middle of this field. Isaiah Simmons is evidently going to get some playing time. I don't understand. He was supposed to be the X factor, Terminator X. Shane Bowman is happy about how he's coming along now in second week of the season. That does not fill me with confidence. But like I said, if I'm the Giants, I'm gonna maybe we just don't have the skill set players in the secondary. Because I was thinking you maybe go with a Patrick Graham type of philosophy and you use one of your safeties as a quasi safety linebacker, like they did with Logan Ryan, like they did with Peppers, like they did with Love, where they keep when they keep one of these guys in the box like 70% of the time. And allow him to be the help in that second level in the linebacking core. But the problem is we just don't have the depth and the defensive secondary to do that because you're relying on two rookies as starters in reference to your nickel and in references to your safety. So I mean, you really just don't have that talent level to do that. And I'm still trying to think here. I'm looking to see if I'm the Giants and I'm looking at our defense here. I mean, Newman had the nice fumble, but Dane Belton's garbage. Pinnock is an average player. I'm not overly thrilled with Anthony Johnson Jr. Banks is a player. Trey Hawkins is not. Cordell Flott is not. Cordell Flott has now moved ahead of Drew Phillips again on the nickelback position on the unofficial depth chart. And Isaiah Simmons is still sitting third. I mean, Washington's going to probably try to do the same thing. Like I said, exploit Newman, exploit Pinnock, and stay away from Banks. Go after Flott, go after Nick McLeod, go after Adoree Jackson. Because Adoree Jackson has been known to give up big chunks of yards. Like I said, last year he had 54 plus receptions and 700 plus yards against him. And if the rush doesn't get there and you don't force errors by the rookie quarterback, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a long day for the Giant defense. Because you think about it, you are going to sit there and have Bobby and McFadden and Whitley as your linebackers. And I know you problem with Brian Burns is at times, he just Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeaux really just don't fit the Shane Bowen system. They fit the Wink system a lot better. They don't fit the Shane Bowen system because last week they dropped Burns in the coverage a lot. Look, Burns were paying $140 million to get after the quarterback. I've never understood that. And he's basically a carbon copy of Kayvon Thibodeaux. We talked about that ad nauseum. But he's not a cover guy. He's not a run stuff for Burns. Neither is Kayvon Thibodeaux. We always show the picture of Jalen Hurts blocking Kayvon Thibodeaux and springing Swift. It's just if you look at the talent on this team, it's just not there. And I always wonder, is this team better or worse than teams from like 20, is it worse than 2020 or 2021? In some ways, the roster is worse. You've been here 3 years, Joe. You've had 3 drafts, and I'm just not seeing it. All that being said, I still think the Giants on the road can win this game. I think it's going to be an ugly game to watch. I think it's 2 bad teams. But as always with 2 bad teams, someone has to win, even though I said that a couple of years ago and the Giants and Commanders tied at home. Someone has to win. If you take a look at the top down from the quarterbacks, I got to give the edge to – actually, if you look at the top down of the quarterbacks, I got to give the edge to Washington. If you look at the running backs, I got to give the edge to Washington. If you look at the wide receivers, I got to give the edge to the Giants. Tight ends, I got to give the edge to Washington. Offensive line, I'm going to say is pretty much tied. Secondaries are both a wash because I both think they're garbage. The linebacking core, I got to give to Washington, and the defensive line, I got to give to the Giants. At the end of the day, I'm going to say I have the same feeling. The Giants can win this game 21-17, or they're going to lose it 35-8. There's going to be no in between. They're either going to have they're either going to have a dominant performance or they're going to put up another stinker. I don't think there's going to be this seesaw battle. I don't think there's going to be anything else in between. I think it's going to either be an all-in win or it's going to be another garbage loss. I'm still holding out hope that I predicted the first 2 games of the season we would go 1-1 and then we would drop 7 in a row. And I had us winning the Minnesota game and losing this game. So I'm going to go with it again. I'm going to go for it again. And I'm going to say the Giants are going to take this one 21-17, still go 1-1, still lose 7 in a row after this, still be a garbage team. But for 1 week, the neophytes are all going to be clapping their hands in unison and saying what a quarterback Daniel Jones is and how for week 1 was an aberration. And then he's going to get his bell rung in the next 7 weeks. But you know what? We've signed up for this. It's a rebuild within the rebuild within the rebuild. 7-2 you start, finish 2-5-1, and haven't won anything since. Oh, make sure you stay for the big stream on Sunday. Sunday Giant at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as always, don't forget to like, don't subscribe. Don't forget to ring that bell if you want to know why. That'll be awesome.